morning and welcome to CEO Chat. My name is Al Cini.
I'm Joe Osamendi. Nice to see you, Al. As usual.
Boy, what a great guest we have today. Yep. John Iona, who is the president of Consilium and is involved with a whole bunch of companies. And if you look at his LinkedIn profile, it'll say right up front, he's a serial CEO, meaning he's committed the crime of being a CEO more than once. And I can't think of a better guest for the people who watch our program than John Iona. And I want to start with a conversation we kind of had yesterday. And that is that you know how to bridge the gap between a great idea, which lots of people have, and a successful business, which hardly anybody has. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's really nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
What a pleasure.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So there's a lot of great ideas out there. You know, people generate them at the kitchen table. People generate them by instances in their life. That's how Virgin Airlines was created. Right. Having a bad experience with an airline spawned that. So, but there's a huge gap between creating that idea and making it a company. And oftentimes there are business plan competitions that will spawn some terrific ideas, some that are already brewing with entrepreneurs, and some that are just sought to be part of this, thinking they can become entrepreneurs. And you and I had talked before. It's an intellectual argument I have with many professors in academia, including business deans, that I believe you can't create an entrepreneur. You can teach people entrepreneurial skills. However, you can't teach the kind of people I've worked with across 3 decades to eat bologna sandwiches for 2 years and work out of the back of their car, or triple mortgage their home, or have that kind of fire in their belly that really makes them successful at the end of the day.
Wow. And you know what? I think you've got your finger on maybe one of the biggest blind spots in human nature. That is, you've got a great idea and it's in your head. And the blind spot is you think it automatically jumps into other people's heads too. And they automatically jump on board with it. And you forget that there's some work you have to do between those two moments. And that's where you come in.
There sure is. And by example, there was a business plan competition in northeastern Pennsylvania. It was in its 13th year, and it had become somewhat irrelevant. And the folks who run the plan came to me, and they said, would you be interested in getting involved and chairing it and reinvigorating it? And I looked at the structure of the competition. It involved 12 different colleges, from Penn State to University of Scranton to Wilkes College to some other regional and state colleges. And what they had done is charged these different schools that were involved with creating a business plan and presenting that business plan to a panel of judges who, unfortunately in the past, weren't really qualified to evaluate an emerging growth business plan. So having seen that, I said, okay, the first thing we're going to do is take the business plans and throw them out the window. An old friend, Pete Musser, who started Safeguard Scientific and also was involved with ICG, Internet Capital, and a wide array of successful companies, had always said that the minute you hit print, that business plan is antiquated.
It's irrelevant. It's like a military plan. As soon as you hit the beach,
absolutely,
you're off the plan.
Absolutely. So what we did was we created 4 deliverables. Okay, you had to have that killer 2-page executive summary, 12 to 14-page pitch deck that was very compelling, a lot of white, but a lot of talk behind it. Okay, pro forma of 3 to 5 years, financial pro forma. Okay, and the most competitive, the most important thing was the competitive analysis, because when you think about it, if you're looking for my money, and I'm looking to raise $2 million, and if you don't know everything about your competitors, I'm not going to give you a red cent. Not only do you have to know that your competitors, and every one of them, eat cornflakes in the morning, you've got to know what fruit they put on it. And I'm not just talking about strawberries or bananas. You have to know. And that deep dive is what entrepreneurs typically Well, they often forget it because they think they could put a matrix together and that tells the story. They have to take a deep dive.
Well, that's important.
It's
And
very
if you're
important.
going to play defense, you got to get so close to the offensive player you can tell what flavor gum they're chewing.
That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
you know,
That's
an old
exactly
line,
right.
But that's exactly right. I mean, that's really it. So, you know, I think that's so valuable. And we talked about how this 30-minute program could be a condensed kind of an MBA for a lot of people. It's not about how wide the margins are or what font you use, which a lot of people get spun up on. It's the who's going to buy your stuff, how much you're going to make, how are you going to spend that money over the next 3 years, and who are you going to have to kill, basically, to win that business.
Right. And, you know, your competition ranges from the 800-pound gorilla out there who's got deep traction and brand equity to the startups that you don't see. And that's the hardest part of doing that competitive analysis.
Really?
And again, that's the most important thing. Anybody could make a spreadsheet do backflips. I see a lot of finance majors, they can make Excel, you know, do magical things. And unless and until you've got a story behind that.
Right.
And you're addressing that competition along the way, okay? And even if you don't have IP, okay, if you've got a first mover advantage, you are, after all your due diligence, you find you are unique. Remember, the second mouse often gets the cheese.
Right.
Okay, so if you've got to speed the market play, you got to hit it hard and you got to hit it fast.
I have a question for you. An idea could be great, but isn't it a management team is just as important, if not more important?
No doubt, no doubt. I can, probably 90% or more of the investors I know will take a great management team and a good product over a great product and a good management team any day.
Wow.
Any
Good,
day.
Right.
Yeah, that
So a
was,
great idea can be mismanaged and ruin it.
I've seen some of the most promising technologies that are now on the shelf or crashed and burned that in some cases were actually lifesavers that came out of university think tanks
Wow.
that are shelved because of mismanagement or people doing wrong things with trials
Right.
or running out of money and not looking for funding when they didn't need it. See, that's a trick too. Never ask for money when you need it, okay? Because you're begging, you're not
you're
negotiating.
begging and they'll know, and that's,
And a lot of these entrepreneurs think it's important to get the highest valuation on their term sheets, okay? When they miss all the language in between that talks about provisions such as, you know, preferences, liquidation preferences, such as double ratchet provisions that could be very onerous. So don't just look at that number. You've got to read, and that's why you need a good lawyer.
no, that's great. We're going to have to take a break. I mean, this is a great program. And
Absolutely.
as usual, you ask the best question. It's always Joe. We'll be right back with more CEO Chat and John Iona after these messages.
Don't
Thank
go
you.
away.
Yeah, definitely.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to jumpstart sales. Build attendance for an event.
Help people find their way. Fast Signs design new directional signage.
And got them back on track. Get started at fastsigns.com.
Welcome to Live Better Longer, the show for baby boomers who want to improve and even extend their retirement years. I'm your host, Bill Borton. On Live Better Longer, our viewers meet and learn from a wide variety of experts and thought leaders who share their knowledge on subjects ranging from portfolio management to nutrition management, from insurance, Social Security, and reverse mortgages, to annuities, Medicare, and Roth IRA conversions. Not just thought-provoking and actionable information, but why it's important to you. Tune in every Tuesday at 11 on RBN TV for reliable and unbiased information from experts in their field who are committed to helping you live better longer.
Is your business growing and now you need a new and bigger building? Has your organization outgrown their facility and now it's time to expand?
Do your hobbies require the need for more space?
If you're paying rent, but now you want the advantages of owning, the prospect of financing, construction, and on-time completion may seem out of your reach. General Steel Corporation has the answer.
A pre-engineered steel building from the General will not only look great and satisfy almost any need, but you'll save time and money. Our team will help you create your building and deliver it to your location. We offer design services to help you present your concept to board members, bankers, or for fundraising. And the General can even help with financing.
General Steel is a name you know, with quality backed by a 50-year structural warranty. Call today and find out how easy it is to have the building you want.
You may even save up to $20,000 with rebates. If you need space, you need the General.
Welcome back to CEO Chat. You're Joe Assemen.
And you're El Cini, and we're in
It's always
CEO
a pleasure
Chat.
to bump into you here
Absolutely.
on a Friday morning. And our guest, we're coming back and talking to John Iona, who is the CEO and founder of iConsilium. And we'll talk about that and your other companies a little later. But during the break, and as you were answering Joe's question from the last segment, I was thinking entrepreneurs, guys with ideas, people with ideas, have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy. And you were saying that's the minimum. I mean, they need to have that.
Absolutely. That's a
If they
starting
stop
point.
there- But if they stop there,
Yeah, if you can't demonstrate you're turned on and excited and that you've got something unique and something valuable and prove that the market's got a major pain point, you're not going to get anybody's attention.
really. So that's the first thing. The first thing is,
Certainly.
in your pitch, you have to be able to say why this is important to you, and you've got to communicate that importance with energy and enthusiasm.
Right.
There's emotion in building a business. It's not all
Absolutely.
just crossing T's and dotting I's.
No, it's personal.
But if you go on after that and cross the I's and dot the T's, or don't bother doing any of that, that's where you come in.
Well, I come in at various times, okay? I've taken over for founders on many occasions, whereby, whether it be a scientist, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, some inventor, somebody who is a leading thinker, who comes up with a phenomenal idea for a business or a product or has some kind of IP or first mover advantage and hits the ground running and gets some early investors. You start with the friends and family, and then you get some angels, and then perhaps angel groups or super angels will go up to $1 million or more. And if they're getting into that Series A, that first real professional round, oftentimes investors will say, we love the business, you're plateaued, we will invest in you, however, you need a professional CEO.
You need a professional.
And I've walked into various situations where companies are in distress to companies who actually have their stuff together, but the founder is at a point where he or she doesn't enjoy watching that lockbox to make sure they're going to make payroll next week, or going out in front of clients because they may be introverted a bit and they don't have a solid background in sales and marketing or finance. So I've got to be a jack of all trades oftentimes when I go in. And the thing is, when these founders are told, or that discussion ensues with investors that we have to bring in a professional CEO, intellectually, they understand it right away. Emotionally, there's often a lag.
Exactly.
And particularly if that founder had a liquidity event after those 2 years of bologna sandwiches, in which he took $1 million or $2 million off the table, she may be a bit of a challenge to manage. Now you're managing millionaires in a company that's virtually a startup, and essentially at times attacking his or her baby, which is a very sensitive thing.
Well, I'm so glad you brought us down that road, because an idea is, a company really is like a child, and you have a founder out there who's created this company. Maybe they ran it for a while, maybe they built it to a point where now they have somebody managing it for them, but maybe that manager, maybe a CEO, is having a little bit of difficulty getting it to the next level that they expected when they turn their company over to that management team.
Yes.
On that basis, you're a turnaround CEO. You can come into a company like that and begin to fix the problem, isn't that right?
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be a problem. It could just be at that stage where the company's plateaued, and they may need a different go-to-market strategy. They may need a different, what I call a penetrate and radiate. They may have a central offering, but there are other ways to infiltrate your client organizations with secondary offerings or complementary products. So that's what I see, and I'm a big believer in what gets measured gets done. A lot of these early stage companies will just run hard, and before they know it, they've got $1 million or $2 million in revenue. And now the professionals, okay, your board is going to come, and it's going to be made up of your investors primarily. And every quarter they're going to beat down the founder, and I'm not saying you're all bad people, but they'll beat down the founder and for the numbers.
Really?
Okay, and that's what they're interested in. And oftentimes there isn't a coaching group that, and one of my friends did it right. I won't mention his name. He asked me to put together an advisory board for him alongside his professional investors. And these were all big names within the vertical they served. And we would meet separate and apart, and we would essentially coach and open up our Rolodex, that shows my age, for these young entrepreneurs. And fast forward several years, I'm actually on the beach and with my family in Positano, Italy. And I get a phone call that they just got taken out for 9 figures.
Wow.
And I think we had a lot to do with helping develop that young management team, whereby the investors were just interested in that top line growth.
Do you find it different to work with a family-owned business and a regular
That's a great
business?
question.
That's interesting because there's something called the Family Business Alliance up in Wilkes-Barre and Scranton. And they invite me to be the outsider who has run family businesses, but not as a family member.
Family member, right.
And that's a challenge. I've done that a couple times.
Okay.
It's you walk a very thin line, and if you are indeed the CEO, you got to make some tough decisions now and again.
Right.
And everything, or nearly everything, becomes emotional in a family business. Now that's a small family business.
Right.
I've also run a pretty large arm of Day & Zimmerman, which is a very large family business, several billion a year, and that was quite different.
Right.
So you didn't run into those kinds of things. There was a structure, it was very professional.
More mature and
Indeed.
more distributed, so that it's not just the family, there are other members of the team too. And in a situation like that, you need to be honest, but you can't be brutally honest.
No, there's an emotional intelligence that's required, it really is. And you manage everybody differently. And I mean that not in the sense of fairness and not being fair, but everybody's got their own unique needs. I inherited a salesman once who actually was married to a billionaire. And he certainly, didn't have that fire in his belly.
Right.
At least I thought. And I approached him and I said, listen, I got to see a little more spark. You're charged with being vice president of sales. We need this, we need that. Why don't you get out there and hit it hard? Right. And long story short, he told me that it was very important for him to be successful because his father-in-law, wanted to have a son who was a son-in-law that was successful.
Kind of set bar for him.
Indeed. And I said, well, having said that, I'll help you be a superstar.
Well, see.
And
which means it doesn't have to be about punishment. It could be about reward and partnership. And
indeed, just understanding
we need
him.
to take a break. That is such an important part of your value proposition, John. I mean, it's you're a turnaround CEO who knows how to get to what needs to be done in order to make a difference in a company. But you also know that there are people in this company, and those people need to be treated with respect and a certain amount of compassion. Or it's not just about being brutally honest about the facts. You've got to respect the people too. And when we come back in a few minutes, I want to talk. We're definitely going to want to talk to you about your companies, Consilium, and the other companies. And we'll be back with more CEO Chat when in about how long? About a minute?
A minute and a half.
Okay,
maybe.
good. Minute and a half. We'll be back with more John Iona. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you.
When did you see the sign?
When I needed to jumpstart sales. Build attendance for an event. Help people find their way. Fast Signs design new directional signage.
And got them back on track. Get started at fastsigns.com.
I'm Casey Price, host of a brand new show on RVN TV called Justice for All. Tune in every Tuesday at 1 p.m. as some of South Jersey's amazing attorneys share their stories and important legal information that could affect you and the people you love. Remember, that's in Justice for All, every Tuesday at 1 p.m., only on RVN TV.
Is your business growing and now you need a new and bigger building? Has your organization outgrown their facility and now it's time to expand?
Do your hobbies require the need for more space?
If you're paying rent, but now you want the advantages of owning, the prospect of financing, construction, and on-time completion may seem out of your reach. General Steel Corporation has the answer.
A pre-engineered steel building from the General will not only look great and satisfy almost any need, but you'll save time and money. Our team will help you create your building and deliver it to your location. We offer design services to help you present your concept to board members, bankers, or for fundraising. And the General can even help with financing.
General Steel is a name you know, with quality backed by a 50-year structural warranty. Call today and find out how easy it is to have the building you want.
You may even save up to $20,000 with rebates. If you need space, you need the General.
Welcome back to CEO Chat. This is such a great program.
Yes, it is.
This particular installment is a great one. I'm Alcini.
I'm Joe Asamendi.
And this guy is John Iona, who is the CEO of Consilium, and he'll be telling us about that in a little bit. But during the break and at the end of the last segment, to keep this conversation going, you talked about the importance of employee engagement, and that really speaks to our heart. We're in the brand and culture alignment business.
Sure.
And you've got this story about making sure the people care as much about the company as their customers might. Why don't you go ahead and tell that?
And they've got to. And I'm a big believer that owners behave differently. I was involved with a company in the early 90s that did a reverse merger before anybody knew what a reverse merger was. We took a clean shell at 75 cents a share, drove the stock to $18. And a handful of people rang the bell, but the vast majority of people involved with getting us there didn't. The stock went down to 6.
Right.
And, so it goes. So I had an opportunity to do my first turnaround. Company was doing about $10 million a year, losing 2. Okay, and I was offered this job by the board of directors, and I said, well, I'd like something called the president's pool, because all my senior executives had stock plans, and I know owners behave differently.
Right.
So they gave me 100,000 deeply discounted options to be able to give out on a spot basis. So if somebody did something really special for the company in February, they didn't have to worry about their boss remembering in December.
Right.
Okay,
Right there.
it was real time. And within the first year, we had about 80 people in the headquarters. Most of our people were out in the field around the United States. Within the first year, everybody had shares. And whether it was 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 p.m. at night, you didn't just see BMWs in the parking lot. You saw everyone from the clerks right up to the executives.
They were all there, and they wanted to do it, and they wanted to be owners, and this was their opportunity to be an owner of the company.
And as we said before, in a bacon and eggs breakfast, the chicken's only interested, but the pig's committed.
Right.
And to that philosophy, I wanted everybody to be pigs, and we were pigs in that positive sense. So I had this cast iron pig bell that whenever somebody got the call from a client that we got a contract, and our contracts range from about 500,000 to as much as 10 million. And by the way, that gentleman who was the vice president of sales walked in and rang the bell once for about 8 million.
No kidding.
Yeah, and I sent he and his wife right to the Four Seasons, to the fountain room, get a suite. He goes, but it's Tuesday night. I said, yeah, tomorrow you come to work.
Yeah, right.
You celebrate now.
That's it. So,
so
check out at 6 because you got to be at work by then.
I gave him a little leeway. He'd come in at noon that day.
Oh, right. Well,
but be that as it may, whenever somebody got that call, they'd come up to my office and ring the bell. Everyone would gather around, and we'd celebrate the origin of the opportunity, the proposal, team, everything. And then we'd all, if it were a minute after noon, we'd run out to the Great American Pub and we'd celebrate and
make a party out of it.
And
this
this
was
was
recognition of exceptional performance. And you did that not just for the VP, but all the way down to the people who answer the phone.
Everyone. And about 20 years, this was about 20 years ago. And they're a several $100 million company to this day.
That's
and
terrific.
Several people are millionaires as a result of the stock they accumulated.
And they deserved it,
Proud
they
of
earned it, and they're not losing money anymore, which is great. So,
No,
I mean,
they're doing well.
It's a testimony to the fact that engaged employees make the pie bigger. It's not about making the slices smaller, it's about making the pie bigger.
And culture is your business, and you know that better than anyone.
Well, it's just so important.
I have another question for you. Maybe you could have a great idea for a business, but you might have the wrong business model. Do you address that?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what happened with that company.
Okay.
For example, they were selling to the wrong people. And it was a financial play, cost of capital kind of thing, and they were explaining it to the wrong people. And when these people brought it to their supervisors and on up the ladder, and we're talking about millions of dollars here, they ran out of intellectual gas to explain the value prop. So I decided we're going to sell it to the CFO. Because the CFO is a very lonely person usually. Nobody wants to, bang on their door, and salesmen typically aren't calling on them. And if they're not in the middle of a 10Q or a 10K, their door is pretty open, and they get it right away. They understood this model right away. I presented McKinsey data, which was tangible. They'd walk down the hall to the COO's office, and it was, from that point on, it just rolled.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
So that was changing the model by changing the target and explaining it to people who will understand the value prop.
Yeah, that's great. Now, we're coming up on that part of the program where you get to tell everybody how to reach you. But so take a little bit of time. Tell us about iConsilium and what it does and some of your other companies, and then tell everybody. I'll let you know. You're looking at the camera and tell everybody how to reach you. Go ahead.
Okay.
iConsilium.
So iConsilium is really a boutique consultancy where I advise boards and CEOs, et cetera. And that's in between the gigs I do as a hired gun CEO. So it may be for a period of a couple months, it may be for a period of a couple years, but what I do is I come in and I work with emerging growth companies, usually founders, sometimes their boards, investors, and help them navigate through the tough parts of startups.
That's great.
And that's the focus of my practice.
Thank you. You do for people what you've done for them really on our program today, which is advise them on how to make the difference between a dreamy idea and an actual practical business.
And I introduce them to service providers. I've got countless contacts in the legal community, accountants, marketing, marcom companies, et cetera. So I set them up with the right teams.
And so by hiring you, your network becomes their network, and that's valuable
Absolutely.
in itself. That's
Indeed.
terrific.
Indeed.
Okay, great. Tell everybody how to reach you, John. Go ahead and talk right into your camera.
Okay, so I can be reached online. My website is i-consilium.com. I think it's up there on the screen. I could be reached, I'll give you one of a dozen email addresses. This is the easiest. It's John, John, at ptd.net, peterthomasdavid.net. John at ptd.net, and I'll even give you my phone number. My phone number is 610-764-9000, 610-764-9000. I'd be delighted to talk to you, whether you're an investor or you're a founder, or you're turning around a company, or if there's anything I can help you with.
Yeah, that's John. Thank you so much for being
My
on CEO
pleasure.
Chat today.
My pleasure. It's
Real
great
pleasure.
to be here.
Pleasure, John. Thank you.
Indeed.
And,
Thank you.
You just heard from John Iona. He's a guy you need to call if you've got any of the issues that we talked about today. And it is, I'm telling you, 15 minutes with John Iona is better than 3 years of Wharton.
Absolutely. More profitable, too.
And more profitable, too. And less expensive, but but it's wonderful talking to you.
Exactly.
And thank you all for joining us today on CEO Chat. We hope you'll join us again next week. Until then, I'm Al Cini,
I'm still Joe Osamendi.
and you guys have a great weekend.
Great weekend. Be safe. We'll see you next week.
Thanks so much.